Good afternoon and welcome to all of you, Excellencies, Mr. Commissioner, dear Pierre, dear representatives of the organizations that have put this together, and to all of you who have decided to spend time with us today and tomorrow. So this is the 7th edition of the Capital Markets Seminar that is co-organized by the European Commission, by the European Investment Bank, and by the European Stability Mechanism. Basically, we are the three institutions that issue Eurobonds, if you want. They're not called really that way. They're called European Safe Assets. And the good news is the number is increasing, and I will come back to that in a minute. So 7th edition means this is becoming a custom, it's becoming a classic. We are here in a building which now is owned by Banque et Caisse de l'Épargne de l'État, which I want to thank for hosting us and their readiness to accommodate lots of our requests, so to have a lot of flexibility in the building. And as you can see, it's a prestigious building. And it used to be, for those who are not Luxembourgers and probably don't know it, it used to be the headquarters of Arbed, the steel industry of Luxembourg. So this building was built nearly 100 years ago. And it was for a long time, and maybe still is, the most beautiful building inside the city of Luxembourg. And it became a bank when I started as finance minister around 10 years ago. Obviously it tells you about transformation. Arbed has also transformed, has become Arcelor, and has afterwards become ArcelorMittal. So the steel industry is still present in Luxembourg, but obviously finance has become more important for the economy, and that's a trend that you see in all European countries, that industry has obviously lost its imprint compared to services. We cannot complain about it, but the fact is that that's the evolution that we are witnessing. I'm really glad to be opening this 7th edition with you here today, and I'm going to go immediately into the heart of the topic, because this year's edition is under the motto Europe at Crossroads and Investing in Values. I think that summarizes very well where we stand today in the challenges that we meet. And while I'm speaking, I'm glad to see that the CEO of Spurcase just came in and missed my thanks, so I repeat them again. Dear Françoise, you come at the time when I'm saying that I'm going to focus on 3 chapters here. First to say that Europe is facing global challenges, and I want to summarize them quickly because they are decisive. They are decisive because until recently we were talking about the fact if we would have 2.4% growth or 2.3% growth. Basically, we were concentrating on economic topics. And today, it is clear that it is geopolitics that is driving major changes. My second chapter will be dedicated to the Europe's economic and structural issues, and the third one on strengths and opportunities. So the world has changed dramatically since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and not only speaking about the heavy human and economic toll, it has also fundamentally reshaped geopolitical dynamics and energy markets. This crisis has exposed Europe's vulnerabilities and accelerated efforts to strengthen its strategic economy, particularly in defense and security. At the same time, these challenges are compounded by the actions of the new US administration, whose swift towards economic protectionism and changing trade policies have introduced a lot of uncertainties. And I would say uncertainties here is a kind of understatement. After months of tensions, an EU-US trade agreement has been achieved. I would like to commend the Commission for achieving what has been achieved. because negotiating allowed to have more certainty for the future, allowed to have a rate applicable in general of 15%, far lower than what was announced back in April. This brings about predictability, and this is very welcome by companies. But let's also not be candid. The difficulties can be in the implementation, and we have already met quite a few. But that doesn't take away the fact that the initiative was the right one, and it only suffices to see the countries that have not reached an agreement are really in a difficult situation. So the deal is a good one. Nevertheless, it is a challenge for our competitiveness and for our supply chains. Not least also because some of the sectors where we are world champions or very competitive are, through these tariffs, becoming less competitive. So if we only look at the consequences of fragmentation, these are alone quite stark. Studies suggest that global output losses that due to the tariffs could reach up to 5% of GDP. That's a source of the World Economic Forum. So traditional multilateral frameworks have weakened, and the risk of regional and global confrontations is higher today than any time in recent memory. These global pressures are amplified by Europe's economic and structural challenges, which is my second part. I'm now going to summarize all our challenges in one sentence, just with a word. It will sound very familiar, but just the enumeration speaks for itself. Slow growth, low productivity, competitiveness gap, population aging, excessive regulation, insufficient defense capability, loss of geopolitical influence. No need to go more deeply into this. All these things are in front of us, and we need to act. In most cases, the necessary remedies are well known. The Letta and Draghi reports have tabled them. Progress in acting upon their recommendation has been uneven, and many pressing challenges remained unaddressed, slowing Europe's ability to fully leverage its strengths. A word on the Letta report. It calls for comprehensive overhaul of the single market, streamlining regulations, and integrating strategic sectors like energy and finance to prepare the EU for future challenges. The IMF has estimated that a 10% reduction in barriers in intra-trade EU goods and multinational production would lift the GDP by around 7%. Quite an enormous number when you realize that we're growing roughly at a rate of 1% a year today since 2022. A lot of work, therefore, is needed to develop capital markets in Europe. I remember well my very first Europe group that I attended 10 years ago in 2014. Now, one can say that the glass is half full or half empty. Some progress has been achieved. Common supervision is an important one, but a lot still remains to be done. The Draghi report on its side stressed the need to mobilize massive public and private investment, integrating capital markets and strengthening strategic economy. Enrico Letta smartly suggested that we should aim for a true savings and investment union, which talks more to people than the words capital markets union or banking union. And he's right. In fact, yesterday, Commissioner Albuquerque suggested that all countries in Europe should have a savings and investment account that should be attractive to channel European savings into the real economy. So this really illustrates what savings and investment union is all about. And we are not lacking talent or innovation. We have produced lots of companies that are $1 billion worth, also if they were startups, and world-class research institutes. But companies, and I will give as an exception to the rule some specific names, Spotify and BioNTech, all choose then the NASDAQ or move to the US instead of scaling up their enterprise in Europe. Why? Because capital markets in the European Union remain fragmented. The cost of inaction is staggering. A recent study concludes that Europe's GDP could be 25 to 30% higher, that means about 8 trillion euro, had a US-style capital market integration existed since 1995. Nevertheless, a high number. Urgent and decisive actions are therefore essential on the savings and investment union using renewed momentum due to geopolitical pressures. If we fail, companies and investors face higher costs, reduced access to finance, and greater inefficiency, which in the end will hold back Europe's economic potential and global competitiveness. The fact that our banking sector is now more resilient with solid capital and liquidity buffers will make progress easier. Some recent developments show that progress is possible even on the most complex fronts. I'm going now to mention 5. One is the SAFE program. The new SAFE initiative allows the EU to pool financing for defense industries and security projects. This is an unprecedented step for the European Union and a direct response to today's geopolitical challenges. In fact, 19 member states have already requested the entire 150 billion euro under SAFE, a sign of just how urgent and widely shared the need for action has become. These 150 billion will increase the European safe assets on the market, which passed the mark of 1 trillion last year. The last number that we could find in the last days of these European safe assets is more than 1.2 trillion euro as we speak. A second example where things are moving is the competitiveness fund that the European Commission has announced, 400 billion euro for mutual initiatives in the field of productivity, innovation, and strategic investment over the continent. That is in the next MFF what is proposed. A third one is the Clean Industrial Deal. The Clean Industrial Deal announced at the beginning of this year outlines concrete actions to decarbonize European industry. A fourth I want to mention is free trade agreements in general, and in particular Mercosur, where finally the European Union has concluded a trade agreement, and we know that there are others in the making. The fifth and last one I want to mention is the efforts of simplification. Simplification does not mean deregulation, but the Omnibus Directive that has been proposed by the EU Commission is certainly an important move that was called for by all European players. So you see, it's not that nothing is happening, and that is good news. Let me now, in the third part, address the issue of strengths and opportunities. The effective implementation of these responses will rely on Europe's proven strengths and opportunities, which provide a solid foundation for progress. The EU is a credible, reliable, and trusted partner. The euro is the second most important currency in the world. It accounts for around 20% of global central bank foreign exchange reserves. The euro's international role can be strengthened given US policy in unpredictability. Investor concerns regarding the US peaked following tariff announcements last April, which marked a clear sell America moment. Foreign investors, mostly private, liquidated over $80 billion worth of US assets, reversing 2 years of continued inflows. This proved to be temporary, but concerns about the safe haven status of the dollar have not fully gone away. In contrast, the euro stands as a stable and reliable choice for global trade and finance, helping to diversify the options available for countries and businesses worldwide. In fact, support for the euro is at an all-time high. 83% of citizens in the euro area support our common currency. The supply of euro-denominated safe assets is on the rise, and it will continue in parallel with additional common actions of the EU. Furthermore, investor confidence remains strong, as reflected in significant foreign flows into the euro area sovereign bonds since April. Let us build on this momentum and accelerate the initiative of the ECB to create a central bank digital currency, the digital euro. Having a digital equivalent to cash would increase the euro's usability in an evolving digital financial ecosystem and reduce reliance on US dollar-denominated stablecoins. In addition, the Eurozone composite PMI covering manufacturing and services edged up to 51.2 in September, just a few days ago, reflecting the fastest pace of private sector expansion in 16 months. This is all good news. Hopefully, the EU will grow more than 1% in the years to come, which was our average in the last year. Let me conclude with an update on the European Stability Mechanism. Also here, there's a lot to be said. First and foremost, the good news that Bulgaria is going to join the euro area and have the common currency starting from the 1st of January of next year. Second, Bulgaria has also applied to become a member of the European Stability Mechanism, because they will then benefit from the safety net that our organization provides. This not only reassures investors, but also strengthens the collective resilience and confidence of the entire euro area. This is because the ESM plays a crucial role in safeguarding financial stability without the eurozone. The 5 former beneficiary countries of the ESM and the EFSF are currently displaying GDP growth that is higher than the average of the Eurozone. The robust economic recovery and improved fiscal positions of these countries have significantly reinforced the cohesion of the euro area. So those who get the support of the ESM are countries that are doing better than the average of other countries. Why is that? Because they did structural reforms and they are now reaping the benefits of these reforms. The champion of them is now Spain, which has one of the highest growth rates in the developed world. So the ESM stands fine. We had our best year last year in terms of profitability, and we currently have an available firepower of 428 billion euro. ESM members ultimately decide how to use that firepower. Financing defense needs is one of such possibilities. As I mentioned before, total loans for safe funds have reached a maximum available amount of 150 billion. If more financing is needed, the ESM could be a possible solution, as stated in the white paper of the European Commission. In addition, the ESM's crisis prevention role has increased in recent years. It monitors and assesses various types of risks, including new ones, geopolitical ones, tariffs, climate, or financial innovation that may have an impact on financial stability. Tomorrow, Nadia Calviño, the president of the EIB, will update you on the developments regarding this wonderful institution, which is our neighbor on Kirchberg here in Luxembourg. The EIB has become an important pillar in financing and supporting Europe's economic growth, technological innovation, infrastructure, and climate action. Together, the European Commission, the ESM, and the European Investment Bank form a strong financial backbone for Europe, combining long-term investment with crisis prevention and financial stability support. But there is no room for complacency. In these times of geopolitical turmoil, what Europe needs is to act, to act, to act. Today, what we need is more Europe, not less. Thank you very much.